You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Hello and welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. This is Matt Adams. We're going to recap the Colts 31-13 loss to the Denver Broncos. The Colts and their playoff hopes on absolute life support right now after this loss. And honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't want to talk about this football team. My wife doesn't really follow sports as closely as I do, and doesn't really follow the Colts. And every week she asks me, how'd the Colts do, or how'd they do, or what have you. And she was off hanging out with a friend while the Colts game was on this week. And I simply texted her, do not ask me about the Colts game, because that is how I felt about this embarrassing game, this embarrassing second half from a team that had its playoff destiny in its hands right there. It could have controlled what happened to them in the rest of the season here, and they still have a measure of control over that. But now, man, they've got to depend solely on other teams losing to get into the playoffs. There is nothing they can do, and they would have still, even if they'd beaten the Broncos in this game, they still would have needed some help to get into the playoffs, but not nearly the type of help that they need right now. Essentially, they need, they have to win out, bar none, no arguments there. And then they essentially need the Chargers to lose the rest of their games this season. And that's about the only way the Colts can get into the playoffs, if you want to actually see more football from this team after this display that we saw on Sunday against the Denver Broncos on the road. Again, this was the most consequential game of the season. And in the first half, this team played like it. For most of the game, honestly, the defense played like it. They understood the magnitude of this game. They understood they were not facing a particularly explosive Denver offense. They understood that they were playing against a young quarterback. They exploited that young quarterback, and they forced him into turnovers, and they were able to control the tempo of this game from the jump. And yes, they gave up a touchdown there in the first half, but still they were sitting on a 13-7 lead going into halftime in a road game that was going to control their fate in the playoffs as to whether or not they would be able to continue their season once, after week 18. And what did you get from this football team after that? You got a bunch of guys who forgot how to play basic football. You have a running back who you paid money to, who decided that, I don't need to carry the ball into the end zone on a touchdown run. And that just completely changed the complexity of the game. So in the first half, the Colts have done this. We've seen this a few different times this season where they have an excellent first drive. And I think they've installed that drive. They've scripted it out. They've practiced it. They're able to execute those plays on that opening drive. And Anthony Richardson, to his credit, made a couple of great throws on that first drive and picked up some third down conversions that allowed them to get on the board early. And you go back and you look at those throws and the manner in which he delivered those balls, decisive, quick. He knew exactly where he wanted to go with those balls. He snuck them into tight windows, and because he's got such a strong arm, that ball's able to get there. They were on time, and they were on target, and that he came up big in those situations. But then you look, what happens in the rest of the game. And the rest of the game is a completely different story for the Colts as far as that offense goes. And I will run through it. Really, it is the second half that lost this team the football game. And I am going to say it. I hate to say it. You don't want to just blame a guy for a game, for losing a game, because it's a team sport. You've got 11 guys on offense. You've got 11 guys on defense. You've got your special teams. You've got your coaching staff. But when Jonathan Taylor got loose for a 41-yard run that looked like a touchdown, but decided that he had to be a cool guy or whatever and just drop the ball, when he dropped that ball before the ball crossed the plane of the end zone, that was the moment that this Indianapolis Colts team lost the game. Now, I know they were all on the sidelines consoling JT, and he was apologizing, and they were all talking to each other about how, we'll rebound from this. Don't worry about it. But the Colts folded like tissue paper after that turnover. After that happened, they were done. It was over. They were never going to recover from that. And then they just kept compounding their mistakes. Again, the Colts opened the second half by intercepting Bo Nix. It was Samuel Womack, who was not even on the training camp roster for this team. He was a pickup, late in the process here before the season started. Picked off Bo Nix, and then 2 plays later, they finally get that thing that Dave and I talked about this a little bit on last week's show when we previewed this game. They got exactly what they needed and wanted from Jonathan Taylor. One of the signature big electric Jonathan Taylor runs. You get great blocking on the right side from the tight ends and the offensive line. Taylor finds the hole, he hits it, and then he goes. He's gone. And suddenly, this 13-7 game is a 20-7 game. The defense is playing great, and the Colts are really, really in control here. Doesn't mean they're going to win the football game, because there was a lot of football and a lot of ineffective offense after that, as we'll talk about. But it was there. This win was there. They had the chance to take control of this game and win, but instead, Taylor just does something absolutely inexcusable. And we saw this in another NFL game this week as well. Before he crossed the goal line, he decided to be really cool and celebrate before he got there. And I do not understand the compulsion, whether it's a wide receiver or a defensive player or a running back. I do not understand the compulsion to just toss the ball up over in the air before you've even crossed the goal line. The poor awareness of what was a big money running back for the Colts, a guy they leaned on, a guy they depended on, just doing one of the stupidest things you can possibly imagine in picking the absolute worst moment to do this. You're watching the broadcast at home. You see Matt Gay come on for the extra point. And I will say that when I watched the thing in live motion, I did think, wow, boy, he really, he got rid of that ball fast at the goal line. I did not think, on first viewing that there was any possible way that he had done it so quickly that he didn't cross the goal line. But as it turns out, the field goal unit's out there for the extra point, and they're waiting. And it's like, why aren't they lining Matt Gay up for the kick here? And I'm like, oh my goodness, they're going to review that, aren't they? They're going to review this call, and they're going to find out when they look at the replay that Taylor let go that ball early, and that's going to be a fumble out of the end zone, and that's going to be a touchback. It's going to be Denver's ball. You're going to take the points off the board. And the review actually happened in a commercial break, and when they reset things, you could tell that the Colts, the point after unit, the field goal unit was no longer out on the field because the defense was lining up and they were at the 20, and that obviously meant that the call was overturned. And then, a few times more in the broadcast, then, they showed the call, or they showed the play, and they showed Taylor go the ball early. It's close. It is close, for sure. But, at least the NFL review felt they had irrefutable visual evidence, because if it had been super close, like in dispute, like if there was some dispute about it, they wouldn't have overturned a touchdown. They wouldn't have taken those points off the board. So they saw something in that replay that told them. And yeah, if you look at it, it's clear he did get rid of that ball before he crossed the goal line. And just, again, this is your veteran player who was widely regarded as the team's best offensive player and their most, their biggest threat on offense. Always Jonathan Taylor, always capable of, taking the ball to the next level. And instead, this is what we get. We get a running back who celebrates early, fumbles the ball out of the end zone, and it just changed the whole complexity of the game. And the chain of events that followed this was just an absolute calamity for the Colts. I would love to be able to wrap everyone in some positivity here and talk about how, well, if the thing had gone here, there, different, the Colts could have won this game. And while there is some truth to that, I can't find any comfort in the way that this game played out, because the Colts just absolutely were awful. If you were looking for, when Shane Steichen was hired as the Colts head coach, we thought we were getting a really good offensive mind. And he also said one of his pillars was resiliency. And we have seen some of those things. We've seen some creative play calls from Steichen, sometimes to his detriment. We'll get to that here in just a minute. We've seen some creative play calls from Steichen, and we've also seen some resiliency from this team. When things go badly, they have had a tendency to come back, at least not cash it in. But I'm telling you, once you take a touchdown off the board like that, in the fashion that happened, it's just, it's too much. You can't recover from it. And I don't care what those players tell each other. I don't care how much they talk about how much they love Jonathan Taylor. That was just a body blow that the Colts never recovered from. Like I said earlier, they folded like tissue paper after that. And if you need the proof of that, let's just take a look at their second half drives. Started off with a fumble. And again, that came off of a turnover from the Broncos, who got the second half opening kickoff. Then it was a punt, then a fumble right after that. This was Michael Pittman Jr., another one of your marquee players. You paid Pitt a big contract in the offseason because he wants to be one of the league's top players. I understand he's dealt with some injury issues this year and has not been as nearly as productive as he would like to be and as the Colts would have liked to have been. But he's a veteran presence on this team. He's a team captain. He fumbled the ball. It was a great play by the Broncos. I'm not saying that it wasn't, but you've got to hold on to these things. That led to a field goal from the Broncos. After that, it was another punt. This was a 3-and-out, which I believe included an offensive holding penalty. There were a couple drives that featured Danny Pinter, who was in center for Tanner Bortolini and Ryan Kelly this week, that got a couple of key holding penalties that really hurt some drives. After that 3-and-out, they had another punt on a 3-and-out. That one was compounded by a 61-yard punt return to Marvin Mims, and that I won't say that won the game for the Broncos, because that brought it to 17-13. The punt return was not for a touchdown, but it set the Broncos up on the 15, and they scored very quickly after that to take a 17-13 lead. So it's 17-13, and the Colts are still, despite the fact the offense is pretty much looking, I hate to say it, the offense was looking like garbage after the fumble from Taylor. They did get a little bit something going on this drive. They're only down by 4 points. You get a field goal, you're still down by a point. You get a touchdown, you get back into this thing. There's still a chance to get back to it. They had a fortuitous penalty. They moved the ball a little bit here. Looked like they had a drive going. And then for some reason, Steichen calls a trick play that involves Adonai Mitchell, kind of a sideways throw to Mitchell, like it's a screen, and then he's got an option to pass or throw back to Richardson or run the ball. He can do all of those things. Mitchell apparently didn't like what he saw downfield, so he ran the ball, and he decided not to run the ball. So he tries to throw it back to Richardson. And in one of those slow motion Zapruder film-like moments, you see the defensive player, Bonito, coming off his block, stepping right into the path of that lateral and taking it 50 yards for a touchdown. And if Jonathan Taylor, was the initial injury, this broke the back of the Colts right here. And listen, again, the Colts offense was not great in this game in the second half, especially, but they were still in the ball game, and they weren't finding a lot of running room. I understand that. I feel like Steichen felt like they needed to do something a little bit different. But putting the game in the hands of A.D. Mitchell when you've got these other playmakers in this game, just not what you want to see. giving this guy like an option to do stuff like that. And it was a disaster. The whole thing was a disaster. The play was not good. Mitchell doesn't. They talked to Mitchell after the game. Doesn't think he did anything wrong. Throwing the ball to the other team and having it return 50 yards for a touchdown. I just, Steichen said they practiced this thing. They liked the look. It went well in practice. Well, practice is not a game. And in the game situation, they did not pull this off. It was ugly. And, that just really cooked them after that. So that made it 24-13. There are other possessions on offense after that. Turnover on downs, interception, turnover on downs. They just made so many mistakes. Even when they'd gotten a stop, and by that point, you 27-13, still a 2-touchdown game, and still not great. But even when they stopped Denver and held them to a field goal, they lined off offsides on the field goal on a 4th and 4. So that gave Denver a first down. They ended up, which was going to give them the chance to chomp a little more clock. And then they also just kind of ended up, scoring another touchdown to get that final margin, 31-13. Rub a little bit of salt in the wound there for the Colts. And it was as embarrassing of a second half performance as I can remember. The trick play that we called is up there in the annals of Colts history, right up there with Colt Anderson and Griff Whalen and the fake punt in the Pagano era against the Patriots. I mean, it probably ranks under that one because that one was one of the all-time NFL bonehead plays, probably the worst play in Colts history. But I mean, the fact that this one even enters the conversation tells you how bad of a play this was, how bad of a decision this was. And, I just, the Colts are 6-8 now. The best they can finish is 9-8. Their schedule's not particularly tough down the stretch. This was their only game against a winning team left on the schedule. But, Fox Sports put out a thing that said the Colts were eliminated from the playoffs yesterday. And that is not technically true. I think the Colts are probably done. Stranger things have happened. They could still back into the playoffs again. They got to win out. They need tons of help. I'm not sure I want to see this team play a 19th game after what we saw against the Broncos yesterday. In a season that's all about Anthony Richardson's development, we have another game in which he doesn't even complete half of his passes again, and is well under half. It just goes through these long droughts. He hits those darts to guys, but, when you're not able to make up for it with the big plays, which the Colts have not hit on some big plays in a while, it feels like the downfield stuff. Teams have gotten onto that, and they've stopped it for the most part. And when you're not able to hit those things, that inefficiency on the offensive side of the ball, in the passing game especially, becomes glaringly obvious. So anyway, yeah, it was a tough game for me to watch. I'm sure it was a tough game for Blue Zone listeners to watch as well. But you know what? Let's add to the excruciating nature of everything and listen to head coach Shane Steichen.
All right, start with injuries. Alec Pierce, concussion, left the game. Speaking of the game, thought we got off to a good start. Obviously, we had our chances. We had a lot of turnovers, a lot of penalties. We got to be great with our fundamentals and technique on those things. I thought our defense played tremendous all game. They kept us in it the whole time. But we had the turnovers that killed us.
Can you explain the play about Aiden Mitchell and why you chose to allow him in that moment?
Yeah, I think that was a play we were looking to get called, and that was the first drive kind of that we started getting something going, and then we got that ball on that play, and, credit to 15. He made a hell of a play, and that's what happened.
Shane, no offense to Aiden, but he has had a lot of mental errors this year. We all like the kid. Do you second guess that decision at all?
You know what, we repped that play all week, and it was great. It looked great all week, and we've had it up, and it was good in practice. He was through it great. Obviously, he's thrown double passes before that he's had success with, and that one didn't work out.
Ideally right there, should he just get the turn on field and just maybe?
Yeah, maybe he didn't see the guy, to be completely honest. Obviously, they blitzed the corner, and then 15 kind of sniffed it out, and then saw maybe Anthony rolling out, and came back and made a play on it.
Is he taught that if they read that?
Yeah, I don't think he saw the guy, to be completely honest. But yeah, if he didn't have it, throw it away.
Shane, what about JT's drop there at the goal line? That was a
Yeah, absolutely. It was a mistake. Obviously, it hurt us, but, he's one of our leaders. And sometimes that happens in football, but, he's our guy, and that's where it's at.
What did you say to him? He said, yes, like you all time.
Yeah, no, he said, shoot, I got you, coach. I said, I know you got me. We're good. Let's go. Let's keep battling.
There's a lot of big moments in this game. And if it wasn't a mistake, it was a penalty.
Yeah, more games are lost in this league. More games are lost in this league than won, and you can't beat yourselves. Straight and simple. That's the bottom line.
So you had an extra week to prepare for this. Are you surprised at how stagnant the offense looked throughout the game?
Gosh, we had some good drives. Obviously, we had a chance to go up 20-7, or whatever it is, and we got off to a good start there, and then had some stalemates there in the third quarter, and credit to Denver on defense.
From that moment on, you guys didn't score again. Do you feel like the offense just didn't get rattled or not?
No, I think we got to get clicking, and I think it starts with myself. Every week, everything we do starts with me.
What did you make of Anthony today? Good, bad?
Yeah, I thought he did some good things. I thought he'd get some good things. I think Denver, did some good things on defense too. So we'll go back and look at the tape.
And there was a lot of pressure. Is that just them bringing extra heat, or is that?
Yeah, we knew that they're a pressure team going into it, and they got good edge rushers. So that's where it was at.
So before it's called this playoff game, obviously on the expectations of it. So how do you swallow this?
Well, I think obviously it was a big time game for us. And obviously, our chances are slim now, but we know that we signed up for 17 of these things, and we're going to go keep fighting and keep battling, and we have a job to do, and we're going to come back and go to work tomorrow and get ready to come home and play the Titans.
You're at a game that the final score did not remotely reflect what happened.
Yeah, I don't think I've been a part of that one, what happened today. So we got to get that thing cleaned up in a hurry, for sure.
What do you make of the defense today?
Phenomenal. They were phenomenal. I think they have 193 yards. Great job. 3 takeaways. Those guys were on it today.
What do you think the issue just snowballed today? Fumble, interceptions, penalties?
Yeah, penalties, turnovers, they kill you. You do not want to have games like that ever, and that's what happened today. So we got to go back and clean it up, bottom line.
Do you just feel like that's what happens sometimes with young offenses on the road in moments like this?
Not necessarily. We've seen that we've had, good moments on the road, and today wasn't our day.
What would the decision you started Danny Pinter over Taylor Ford was healthy, right?
Yeah, we felt Danny played really good last week, so stayed with Danny there.
That was Indianapolis head coach Shane Steichen reacting to the Colts' 31-13 loss to the Denver Broncos. And this was an important game for both those teams. For the Broncos, if they were to lose out the rest of their games and the Colts were to win out, both teams would have the same record. And because the Broncos have the head-to-head win over the Colts now, they would be in and the Colts would be out. So that's why the Colts really needed to win this game. Again, they would have needed some help still to get in the playoffs, but not nearly as much help as they need now. There exists a wacky scenario in which the Colts win out and everybody else in the playoff field loses, and the Colts end up with a 5th seed. By losing today, and then by virtue of a Houston Texans win, the Colts are done in the AFC South. I thought the AFC South, that they were gone. It was done. It was a foregone conclusion. But until it's done, it's still there's still hope, right? Well, no, it's all done now. They have no chance at win the AFC South. They haven't won in a decade or however that works. Let's look at some key stats here. I'm going to start with the defense. I usually start with the offense. I'm going to start with the defense this week because, listen, the defense was pretty good in this game. They eliminated the big play for the most part. They didn't give up the huge runs. We've seen them before. Where the Colts really faltered this week was on offense and then on special teams. They had the big special teams blunder. What kind of game is this if they don't give up the big 61-yard punt return to Marvin Mims? Hard to say, right? What kind of game is this if Jonathan Taylor doesn't drop the ball, right? If he doesn't just casually flick the ball down as he's trying to cross the goal line. Those are the things that haunted me after this game. And I imagine, it sounds like I'm just taking pot shots at the Colts. And I know that the team feels worse than I do because they put the hours of work into it every week. And then they go and they lay an egg like that in the second half. And then you got to board a plane and come home from Denver. Then you got to watch film and talk about it. Can't be fun. So let's keep that in mind. They work hard, and you just hate to see the results like this. Anyway, the Colts defense held the Broncos to under 200 yards of total offense in this game, and still lost by a large margin, 31-13. EJ Speed with 13 tackles. Zaire Franklin had 9 tackles and an interception. Nick Cross and Samuel Womack also had interceptions. I mean, the Colts did a really nice job. They did what you would want them to do. They gave up a play here and there, but for the most part, they didn't give up sustained drives like they've had a reputation of doing this season. They got the turnovers in timely fashion when they needed them. The problem is the offense turned the ball over 5 times, right? You had the fumble by Taylor. You had the fumble by Pittman. You had the Mitchell fumble / interception. It's technically a fumble. At least that's how I saw it in the box score. And then a couple interceptions by Richardson. One, he put a bunch of air over a ball in which Alec Pierce probably would have caught for a long touchdown, or not a touchdown, but a long pass in the first half. And instead of kind of, putting some force on that ball, he tries to air it out. He overshot Pierce, and that one ended up getting intercepted. The other time he tried to challenge Patrick Surtain. Not a great idea. And that came late in the game as well. That came late in the game, and that hurt any attempts at a comeback there. DeForest Buckner had a sack, so those of you who like to cash in on the McDonald's deal will be able to get your 10-piece McNugget with a $1 purchase at McDonald's, and that comes courtesy of DeForest Buckner, who just absolutely swallowed Bo Nix in a key sack early in that game. On the offensive side of the ball, 22 carries for 107 yards and a fumble for Jonathan Taylor. Michael Pittman Jr. was the leading receiver for the Colts, 6 catches, 58 yards on 9 targets. Also, a fumble, and that led to points. Josh Downs, 3 catches for 32 yards on 8 targets. Kylan Granson, one of the better games from the Colts tight end core this year, which really is not saying much, but 3 catches for 47 yards. He had 4 targets. Alec Pierce, 0 catches this week, had 4 targets, left with a concussion. Richardson tried to hit him on the sideline near the end zone on the left side, and I guess Pierce must have hit his head. Obviously, hit his head at some point coming down or what have you, and had to leave the game with a concussion. So we'll see if he's even able to return next week. Richardson's numbers just pretty ugly. 17 for 38, 172 yards, 0 touchdowns, a couple interceptions. He did show his, for the most part, he showed his penchant for getting out of sacks and preventing guys from sacking him. You can give him credit for that. He is tough to get down. They did get to him, but it is definitely not an easy thing to do. He had 7 rushes for 46 yards. That included a 23-yard touchdown, and that was on the Colts' first possession, and then pretty much all downhill from there. So anyway, it was a rough game for the fans, rough game for the team. Let's hear from Anthony Richardson.
Throw it to me. I look down the field and see what's open. If I got a lane to run, run. If not, make something work. So they played, decent coverage right there. The DN was able to jump it, find a way to go get it. So, yeah.
What did the Denver Broncos make it difficult for you today?
Credit to them, for playing good ball, but they didn't really do anything, to make it difficult. Honestly, they just played a great game. Whenever they had opportunity to make plays, they did so, and whenever we had opportunity to make plays, we created penalties for ourselves and put ourselves behind the stick, and we was also playing behind the play clock a little bit. So they didn't really do anything to make it difficult. They just played a good game.
Have you seen a game so far this year where you guys beat yourselves to this extent?
I don't know. There's been a few games where we've done that, and we're tired of doing that. Honestly, our defense played great for us today. When we had like 5-6 turnovers, so you can't win no games like that. So, yeah.
How do you guys look at Ortiz's fumble?
I mean, it's an accident. Obviously we want points right there. Obviously he wants to get in the end zone, but stuff like that happens. Next time we just got to finish through the end zone. So, yeah.
What did you say to him? I saw you talking to him on the sideline.
I just told him to wipe it. Forget about it. Stuff like that's gonna happen, even though you don't want it to happen. I just told him to clear his mind because obviously we're going to go right back to him. And if he's thinking about the last play, then that's going to alter what's going to happen on the field. So just told him to wipe it and just don't worry about it because we're coming right back to him.
You guys weren't able to score after that. So, I mean, do you feel like that moment affects you, get you guys off script or what?
Nah, I don't think so. I think it was just the penalties, just being behind the sticks, having 3rd and 15 twice in a row, 2nd and long, those are hard to convert in this league, because playing a good defense like that, it's hard to convert things like that. So JT's play doesn't, determine whether or not we lose or not, because I also threw 2 interceptions, so we can also look at that as well. But, we just got to just clean it up.
What happened on the 2 interceptions?
The first one, zone read, DN ran up the field. Really supposed to hand that one, but I felt, our flat control, outflank him. And the corner jumped it, went over the top. I didn't see the safety. Just put too much air on it on AP. I should have just drove it. Second one, they had a cover 2 disguise. Steichen jumped the underneath route, which was, pretty good by him. So I was thinking go over the top, and he just recovered and made a good play on it. So, yeah.
Hey, where do you go from here now that these playoff chances are virtually dead?
And still got to think about the routine, think about the process. Despite what's going to happen, throughout the rest of this year, we still got things that we're trying to pursue in the next, upcoming years, when the time is possible. But, just keep focusing on getting better, and try not to dwell too much on the past and just get better.
That was Anthony Richardson after that loss to the Denver Broncos, again 31-13, your final score. And that one drops the Colts to 6-8 on the season. Up next, they've got the Tennessee Titans for a 1 o'clock kickoff. That'll be on CBS 4 on Sunday. The rest of the schedule at the New York Giants. And then home against Jacksonville to close things out on Week 18. We're still waiting to hear the league announce those kickoff times. I assume that we'll hear those fairly quickly. If you want the Colts into the postseason, then you really need to root for the Chargers and the Ravens and also probably the Broncos to lose out, because that's really, I think probably the Colts' best road to the playoffs is if the Chargers can just kind of implode. If the Chargers can implode and the Colts can win out, which honestly, as we've seen the consistency of this team not being there, is sort of a laughable proposition. But if the Colts can win out and the Chargers can lose, then that's probably their best way to get into the playoffs, at least just looking at it from a glance, just as things stand here in Week 15. But yeah, I'm sorry for the downer of a podcast, but it was a downer of the second half, and just not a lot of positivity to go around this week for the Colts. And I think that's a lot of people wondering what's going on in the front office. Is Shane Steichen the right coach for this team? Is Anthony Richardson really the franchise quarterback? These are all questions that people are going to have. And you would like the Colts to play well enough and to appear prepared well enough and to appear to be well coached enough and well managed from a personnel standpoint that you don't have to worry about these things. But, the product out there on the field right now is inconsistent, maddening at times. And, we would still like to see a quarterback who can complete 60% of his passes, or at least 55. Like, if you had 55% completion percentage, you hit a few of these short throws, and then you also connected on some of those deep shots, it kind of makes up for, maybe missing a throw here and there. But like again, lasers from Richardson on that first drive, just in rhythm, throw, boom, tight window, narrow window, got the ball right where it needs to be. Then later in the game, you got Josh Downs open kind of in the flat, and the ball's thrown, 15 yards over his head. And that is maddening to watch as a fan. Anyway, Mike and Dave and myself, we'll see how things shake out with some holiday scheduling and things like that. But we'll preview the Titans game. It is a winnable one for the Colts. All the games, even this Broncos game was a winnable one for the Colts. But we saw what the result was there. But the Titans, the Giants, and Jacksonville, all winnable games to finish out the season. The Colts still have a shot at 9-8. Shot at the playoffs, boy, again, they got to rely on a lot of other teams in order to get there. But it's possible. They're not eliminated yet, mathematically speaking. And there is a wacky scenario, again, where they could be the 5th seed. I don't foresee that happening, but, they play the games for a reason. And I guess that's what you just have to look forward to, is that perhaps, if the Colts can just take care of business, maybe some other things can fall into place. But the way the luck of this franchise has gone of late, it's a lot to ask. Anyway, for the Colts Blue Zone podcast, this has been a game recap. Thanks for listening.